Hi, welcome to Take Action. We're gearing up for the 86th Texas Legislative Session. We're going to have some overview of some key issues. We're going to have the political landscape, and we're going to be talking about building relationships and advocating for your library. I'm Susan Mann. I'm the director of the Hillsborough City Library, and currently I'm chair of the TLA Legislative Committee. I'm also a past president of TLA. With me today is Marty DeLeon from... Thank you. He is our TLA lobbyist. And I think Marty's going to start us off today. Marty?
Thank you, Susan. I want to thank TLA for this opportunity to talk a little bit about what's happening at the state capitol and a little bit more about the issues. Without further ado, a lot is going on, Susan, at the state capitol. The School Finance Commission, which is looking at funding schools over the long term. The commission is made up of 13 members, and many of the members, or I should say the hearings, have been focused on efficiency and how to make schools do more with less. We expect several recommendations from this commission to be put forth in a final report. The commission is going to make recommendations, but they don't have the force of law. What I do see happening in the Capitol next session that will probably be a law is the issue of school safety. As we all know, Santa Fe was a horrible tragedy, and lawmakers have been focused on improving school safety and mental health awareness. We have yet to see final recommendations on this topic, but the governor has put forth a 40-point plan to address school safety, and that's on his website. Also, during this time, the state library is under sunset review. This has been a year-long process, and the state library, the sunset report, will have its final viewing, I should say, at the Sunset Commission on August the 29th. This is where the commission will make a decision, or actually think about making a decision on the report itself. Now, for public, the public will have an opportunity to weigh in during this meeting, and we will have, I believe, some witnesses talking about the merits of continuing the state library. And then the process finally concludes on November the 14th and 15th, where the commission, the Sunset Commission, will make a final recommendation for the legislature. Also happening in public schools, school districts recently received their letter grades. This has been in the works for a couple of years now. And as you can see from this chart, this pedestrian chart I stole from TEA, more than half of the school, or close to half of the schools, received an A or a B, which is a good sign for many school districts. Ultimately, the concern here going forward is standards are going to rise. And what does that mean is that districts will likely have to consider interventions and sanctions from TEA in order to improve their schools. I'm not really a big fan of letter grades because so much of letter grades hinge on the poverty, the number of kids on free and reduced lunch that are economically disadvantaged. I worry going forward that schools will be labeled with these ratings, and they won't. The legislature won't consider additional funding. Well, speaking of additional funding for our retired teachers, there is some concern. Going forward, TRS Care is underfunded by $2 billion. The TRS, Texas Retirement System, is at its next board meeting considering raising premiums for all retired teachers that are younger than 65, up to $50 more per month. For those that are not on Medicare. And this increase would begin in 2019. Now, the commission, the TRS agency, has not met yet, but they will meet in September to consider increasing the premiums for our retired teachers. And on this slide, you'll see that in order to stay solvent, TRS Care needs 410 million. With the increase, they'll need only 246. But I think this is good news. Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick has already signaled his support for TRS and telling the TRS not to raise premiums. This is going to be an interesting issue going forward because, as I said, TRS needs $2 billion more to continue to stay solvent. Yet, in the next few slides, I'm going to talk about the budget. It does not look good. Before I get to the budget, in the House, there's going to be a new speaker, and the Republican caucus, the House Republican caucus, wants to pick a new speaker amongst themselves. And they hope to caucus before the first day of session, in which they'll pick one of their own, and hopefully, in their mind, someone that's more conservative than Speaker Strauss. I think the more things change, the more they stay the same. What happens on the first day of session when they do pick the speaker, I believe somebody that's in the same vein, the moderate portion of the Republican Party is going to be named speaker, but we don't know who that is. 5 people have said they would like to run for speaker, and the race is still too early to call. Speaking of our budget, the state comptroller has said we have many unfunded liabilities. Our AAA rating is at stake, largely because the legislature has not funded these programs that are listed on the screen on the bottom right-hand corner. The employee pension fund needs more funding. TRS Cares, as I mentioned before, Medicaid enrollment keeps skyrocketing. Transportation is an annual issue. The folks in the Gulf Coast still have not seen any relief from the Hurricane Harvey tragedy. And the Texas Tomorrow Fund, which is underfunded by $250 million, is also struggling. Here's just a quick slide of all of our items in our budget that we have kicked down the road, a can that we kicked down the road. We have, going into next session, an $8 billion shortfall. And then I added 2 more items, TRS Care at $2 billion, and then the cost of the Harvey rebuild. Going into next session, we have a serious deficit that we have to deal with. But there is one silver lining. The comptroller recently said that we made in revenue $2.8 billion thanks to the oil and gas boom that's happening in West Texas. So technically, on paper, the legislature is going to have a $5 billion shortfall as opposed to $8 billion. Additionally, the Supreme Court says that the state of Texas and many other states may now collect sales tax on Amazon and other out-of-state online providers. This could translate into a $1 billion more for our coffers. So we're looking at maybe $4 to $5 billion in terms of a deficit. It's not as bleak as we had first thought going into this session. But the legislature does have to pass legislation to allow the state to collect sales tax on online purchases. The question that is most important, I think, for the association is, what can I do? As a member, there are lots of things that the members can participate in, Susan. Like, for those members that have access or relationships with state lawmakers, many of them do have their cell phone numbers. Many of them are speaking to them on a daily basis without really knowing that they are in contact with these state senators, state representatives. My advice is it would be great if our members could contact Wendy Woodland at wendyw@txla.org and let us know which lawmaker you know or you have their cell phone number, because going into next session, as I said before, there is a budget shortfall, and we need to protect the services and programs at the state library and other programs that we care about at TLA.
Great, Marty, thank you. Now, everyone, you have a picture of the landscape going into the next legislative session. Now, what are you going to do? Here, let's give you a few hints about some good things to do. All politics is local, and we're all advocates. So these are things to remember. Always vote. Doesn't matter how you vote. Nobody really knows how you vote, but they know if you vote. So it's critical that our voice is heard. So please get out and vote. Next is to develop and practice their opening intro statement. In other words, have your statement of who you are and what's important to you. Libraries are important and why. Condense it down, get it, practice it all the time, and be ready to deliver it whenever you have the opportunity. Next, remember that meaning you are the experts in all things library. So be their go-to person, give them information. You know, legislators are great, but they don't know everything, and they certainly don't know what library issues are. The next thing, there's 3 things to do between now and January 8th, and that is to ramp up your advocacy. Please don't be nervous when you're contacting your legislator. They are just people. They are human, just like you and I. They just have ran for a position and were lucky enough to be elected. So they know people, but so do you. You're in contact with people every day. So now is the time to get out and make your voices heard. The first thing that would be a great thing to do is to meet your legislator in his or her office. Call your legislator's district office, schedule a brief meeting to share about the latest news, and Wendy here at the TLA office, as well as Marty, will be getting out information to you on different topics that will be coming up that we feel like are important, and also our legislative agenda. And those are things that you can share with your legislator. If you don't feel comfortable going to their office, invite them to your library. Share with what's happening. Let them know what's going on in their district. If you have a great program going on, invite them. Invite them to story time. The next thing would be to tag your legislator in social media, share some news about your library and activities. They love to have their picture out there, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's in the local newspaper, whether it's on television. They don't care. They just want to be out there in front of the public doing something positive. So anytime you can give them an opportunity to have a positive interaction with their constituents, they're going to love you for that. So if you'd like, you can always start with writing them a letter. And when you're writing your letter, though, remember they are just people. So speak to them as you would speak to a friend, but be respectful always. But tell them what's important, what's going on in your library, what they can have impact on, and how they can come to your library and see. And, it's great to have events and invite them there. Again, they'd love to see their constituents in their home communities. Okay, we've already talked about this a little bit, but elected officials love to be asked to help. And if you're looking for ways to be visible in their district, one of the things that I always do is whenever I'm writing grants and asking for funding, I usually ask for a letter of support. They love to do that because who doesn't love libraries, right? And they always tell us, oh, I love libraries, but they don't always step up and fund us. So here's a way that they can help us without having to get out their checkbook. So first of all, ask them to read at a story time, maybe speak to the book club, your board of trustees, or your friends of the library about local issues. Provide remarks for them at the event that is for the entire community. In other words, make sure they're prepared, make sure they look prepared when they're coming in there. Never try to embarrass them. That's never a good thing to do. Always build them up. That's what they like. Tour the library, give them show them how it's being utilized. It's always great if there's lots of people in there and you can show them how important the library is to your community. Next thing is be tenacious. Don't ever give up. This is a long process, and this year we may not get what we want, but we'll be back next session and we'll try again. You have to remember that our elected officials hear from and meet hundreds of people every day. So the main thing you have to do is stand out. How can you do that? Always stay on message. Always talk about libraries. Always give them information. Always be positive, be happy, because they really want to speak to someone who's nice and cheerful. If you come in and always tell them how bad everything is and how terrible the world is, they're not really going to be wanting to meet you and to talk to you for a long time. So always be upbeat, try to spin it, and always ask them for their help. So think of legislators as another target audience, just like one of your users. And I think you will be successful in that. Okay, the next thing is to save the date. We are having an advocacy pre-conference and capital visits during the TLA conference on Monday, April 15th. We hope you will come and join us. What our plan is to discuss the issues again, talk about our agenda, our platform, and then we will hear from a very motivational speaker on advocacy, and then we will move over to the Capitol and make visits, and you will have someone that has had experience making visits with you, so please don't be nervous. And we hope we have lots of people from all over the state sign up, so please think about it. If you have any questions or comments, please get in contact with me, again, at Susan Mann. And there's my contact information on the screen, as well as Wendy Woodland, also, who is also with TLA. She's our Director of Advocacy and Communications. And we are very easy to find. You can always look for us on the TLA website and to get that information. And we would love to hear from you. So, and also, as Marty had said earlier in our webinar, if you have any connection with any representative or senator from our state, please let us know. We would be happy to go talk to them and to talk about library issues. So have a great day, enjoy your meetings, and we hope to see you in April. Thank you.